Thank you so much for coming this morning. This is one of the first panels of the day, and we're going to start with such good energy here. I love it. So my name is Jessy Grossman, and thank you for that introduction. I'm the CEO of Boldstreak, which is a social media talent agency, and the founder of WIM, Women in Influencer Marketing, which is a networking group for women in business. And I think that's why they asked me to moderate this panel. So they thought I'd be fangirling out over everyone on the panel, and I am. So thank you again for coming this morning. We have some really great questions and fantastic panelists. So I'm going to introduce everyone briefly, but they definitely don't need introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway. So first, we have Daniella Yacobvsky, who is the co-founder of BaubleBar. She's the co-founder and chief brand officer of BaubleBar, the first fashion jewelry brand to disrupt the industry and redefine how women shop for accessories. I know I have some pieces from there, and I absolutely love them. Daniella also spearheads all of BaubleBar's creative, overseeing everything from product design and digital marketing to the brand's original content and social footprint. Next, we have Maria Hatzistefanis, who is the founder and CEO of Rodial. You might have heard of them as well. She's also the author of the best-selling Millennial Guide to Business, How to Be an Overnight Success. Maria is the founder of luxury brand Rodial and the younger Nip and Fab, whose campaigns are fronted by Kylie Jenner, new mom Kylie Jenner, and Sophia Richie. Maria is a guest mentor at Project Runway All-Stars. I'm obsessed with that show. And a social media personality having 1 million followers. That's pretty impressive. Next up, we have Nastia Liukin, who is an Olympic gold medalist on the panel, y'all. That's incredible, if you ask me. Yes, absolutely. Please cheers to that. And she's also the founder of Grander Sports, which is a platform of communities, to empower female athletes. She also just graduated from NYU this past spring. Congratulations. That's very exciting. And she just launched her blog, NastiaLiukin.com. Check it out. She serves as an athlete representative for both the Federation of International Gymnastics and USA Gymnastics, along with work as a television analyst for NBC. And she was actually a commentator for the Olympic Games in Rio this 2 years ago, I guess. We're in 2018, so it's 2016. And last but certainly not least, we have Monica Deretich, who is the VP of Marketing at JustFab. She has 10 years of experience in the fashion retail space, specializing in data-driven strategic planning and execution. And she was born and raised and still lives in Southern California and traveled in to be here today, and is a proud CSUF graduate. So welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a few really good questions for them today. And we're also going to have a Q&A at the end. So definitely take some mental notes, take some written notes, because we'll ask you all for your questions when we're done. So the name of this panel is Becoming an Entrepreneur, How to Build a Business. So all the questions are very much related to that. And I think you're going to hear some really interesting things today. The first question that I have for Daniella is, what was the first step you took in building your business?
So I started BaubleBar with my best friend, Amy, and at the time we were in business school. So what was really nice about it is you almost have a little bit of a safety net. We came up with the idea the summer between our first and second year of business school, and the first thing we started to do was just really start to do a lot of research on the market and better vet the idea. One of the things we really benefited from was the fact that we were at school at the time and we were surrounded by, fortunately, hundreds of women who would be in our target market. So we immediately launched focus groups, panels, really just an opportunity to get in front of all of these women and sort of bounce ideas off of them, hear how they responded to the product, to the concept, how we would eventually kind of roll things out. And then from there, we just continued to build. So as we learned more about their preferences and taste as consumers and what they really wanted to shop, and we felt confident that the idea wasn't just something we were excited about, but that there was a broader audience for it, we ended up self-funding a beta site. So Amy and I both took a little bit of money, whatever was left after paying for business school, and basically put that into a small beta site, got it up and running, and started collecting as much data as possible.
That's amazing. Amazing. And what did you find from that first experience? Like, what did you take away that you wish you knew today, that you wish you knew then?
I think, for me, when I look back on when we were starting BaubleBar, one of the key lessons that I think really holds true is when you're first starting, there is this fear that you're going to do something wrong. And there's this fear that you're going to put something out there that, people are going to hate that visual or that editorial or that copy or the website design or that product design. And I think what we realized is, people don't necessarily remember every little thing that you did. And as long as you are honest with your consumer and as long as you are not losing their trust, it's okay if it wasn't the most perfect editorial or the most perfect copy or the most perfect website design. I think it's more important that you get it to 90% and you put it out there and you be open to feedback and be open to shifting and changing what you thought was the right way to do it. Because truthfully, I think as an entrepreneur, you're never going to be at that place where you're like, I'm 100% satisfied with every single thing. Every single day, you're going to find a new laundry list of things that you would change. So get it to a place that's a place that you're proud of and happy with, and put it out and start collecting feedback, and don't be nervous and afraid. In the beginning, Amy and I would literally hold hands when we sent our first email out. We were like, oh my God, here it goes. And then you're like, oh, nobody remembers. I remember because I put it together. But people don't necessarily have the muscle memory to remember every single little thing you put out. You have an opportunity to refresh it.
And I feel like that also holds people back from even starting in the first place, because they feel like it has to be at 100% right at the very beginning. But you probably feel like you learn along. I mean, obviously, you learn along the way anyway. So getting most of the way there, just do it.
Yeah, right. You 100%. I mean, the analogy I always use is building an IKEA chair. If anyone here has ever built furniture from IKEA, the first chair, you literally mess up 80% of the instructions. You put the thing on backwards, you do this the wrong way, and then when you build the second chair, you're not even looking at the instructions anymore, partially because they're in Swedish, but you don't need them because you remember all the mistakes you made on the first chair. So you're like, oh, I did that, and that was clearly not the way to do it. You're supposed to do it this way. So that you can build the second chair in a third of the time that it took you to build the first chair. And businesses, I think, are very much the same way. So you got to build your first IKEA chair, and then when you build the second one, it's going to be even better.
I don't want to build an IKEA chair, but I do want to build a business. I'd love to ask Maria the same question. What was the first step you took in building your business?
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I was born and raised in this tiny remote island back in Greece. And I remember very vividly when I was 14 years old, this island didn't have a beauty store at the time. This is over 20 years ago. I was getting ready to go out with a girlfriend of mine, and we wanted a bit of color on our cheeks, and at that time there was no blush, believe it or not. So I get a tin of Nivea cream, and I mix it up with lipstick, and I come up with the first ever blush. So I've always been passionate about beauty since I was a little girl. My first job was a beauty writer. I did that for a little bit. Then moved to New York. I studied business, and I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And I ended up in banking, of all places, just because everyone was doing banking at the time. And then very soon I got fired. And that was probably the best ever thing that happened to me. At the time, I wasn't thrilled being fired, but it was something that made me think hard about what I wanted to do with my life, where my passion lied, and follow my dreams. So this is when I decided to start my own business. And what I did, the first step was, hey, I need some investment, I need some money for this. I put a business plan together, and I sent it out to about 10 private equity firms. I got 7 emails back, 7 responses. I got 3 meetings, and I got 0 investment. That's how I started. So then I said, I'm going to keep it really small. I will start really small. I was very disappointed that was the first rejection that I got for my business, but I thought I'll do it small. I will do everything myself. And the first few years, I was operating from a back room at home where I had little bottles and boxes and doing everything myself. From coming up with the product ideas, to going to the manufacturers, to packing boxes, to going to the stores on the weekend selling my product. But not getting investment was actually the best thing that happened to me because it made me go through every single area of the business, learn it, and as the business grew, I knew how to take it to the next level because I did everything myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And so by doing everything yourself, do you wish that you had more help at the beginning? Or like what advice would you give to people who are starting out, who have to do it themselves? Do you suggest that people just bootstrap it, be really scrappy and do it themselves, or invest in help because it'll grow your business maybe faster? What do you suggest to people?
You don't really have a formula. There's no magic formula of how to do this. It's what feels right for you. And I've seen businesses succeed without investment. If you get investment, you tend to grow faster. It took me a long time. It took me a while. In terms of what advice I would give, I think the first days I was doubting myself a lot. I wasn't believing in myself. And I would think every day, will my business survive another day? I was really worried. And if I was to go back and give advice to my younger self, I would say, look at the big picture. Every day, whenever you're building something, think about the big picture. Don't sweat the small stuff, and believe in yourself.
Believe in yourself, absolutely, always. Question 4, let's see. What does a day in the life look like to you, Nastia? And how has that evolved since the beginning?
Well, I used to train 7 hours a day, 6 days a week. So I don't do that anymore. So my days are not filled with being in a leotard for that many hours. But ever since the Olympics, I always knew that while winning the gold medal was something that I'll forever be so proud of, but I always kind of knew that achieving my quote-unquote lifelong dream at 18 years old was amazing, but also so scary because it was like, okay, great, this is all I dreamed about my entire 18 years, but now I have the rest of my life to live. And so my parents were actually both gymnasts as well, world and Olympic champions. So as the only child, gymnastics was just something that was such a huge part of my life and still is, but I knew that I needed to kind of set these new goals for myself and new dreams because that chapter of my life was kind of coming to an end. And so now my days are filled with really a lot of different things. And I think ever since I finished gymnastics, moving to New York, going to NYU, graduating, you know, my life was so different every single day. Yes, the structure of going to class, but outside of that, you know, you wake up and you have something different every single day where I was so used to having that structure in my life and also being coached every single day of my life where it was literally somebody telling you what to eat, what to work out, you know, how many hours to work out. And so ever since then, I think it was freeing, but also scary at the same time because it's like the door is open, you have all these possibilities and opportunities, but you have to figure out which way that you want to go. And so being able to start the business was something that I was so passionate about, and being able to have something back in my life where it was a constant, it was consistent, it was something that I'm working, you know, really hard on every single day, just like the Olympics, where you know, you're giving 110% every single day, and the success comes from, you know, your hard work, your dedication, your determination. And so I think, you know, building a business to me is very similar to training for an Olympic gold medal in many ways.
Absolutely. And how do you split your time? Because you have a few businesses that you're working on right now. So how do you do that?
Yeah, balance is something, you know, as no pun intended being a gymnast, but I think it's hard because I always feel like, you know, first of all, family for me and, you know, my fiance, like that part of my life is the most important. But then also kind of splitting your time between businesses or between your different passions. And so I do think that sometimes if you spend a little bit too much time here, you know, that one kind of falters a little bit and vice versa. So it's kind of figuring out, for me, it's a trial and error process of, you know, if I feel like I'm working too much or if I'm on the road for, you know, 4 weeks at a time, I kind of take a step back and think, okay, I really need to spend some quality time with, my family, my fiance, and, he's able to kind of come on the road with me sometimes, but balance is key, I think, in anybody's life, but it's definitely hard to find that, and I think sometimes we stress out about being balanced a little bit too much, and just kind of focus on the present in the now, and when you feel like maybe something else is struggling a little bit, spend a little bit more time and attention to that.
And whoever else wants to chime in, because I feel like this is a good topic to talk about in a female entrepreneur panel, right? It's like, how do you all find balance? How do you juggle all the many responsibilities and passions that you all have in your life? Whoever wants to jump in.
Sure. It's hard. I mean, I will be totally honest. So we've been meeting with wedding planners recently, my fiance and I, and we had to fill out one questionnaire, and it said, what are 3 words you would use to describe your partner? And he literally just wrote for me, busy. And I was like, that's so sweet. Write something nicer right now. I was like, I will give you some ideas. I will give you a list. Delete that. But it's true. I think that women particularly, and I hate to stereotype, but I do think that women, we tend to be a little bit harder on ourselves and really tend to not forgive ourselves for potentially dropping a ball or deciding to put something to the side. And we want to do everything at 100% all the time, and at some point, you have to give yourself a little bit of breathing room and relax. When we first started the business, both Amy, my co-founder, and I didn't take vacation for the first 3 years. And it was a huge disservice to ourselves, because I think especially when you're creating and building something, you need to have the headspace to take a step back and not be in the weeds all the time, because I think that's when your best ideas come. So I think that each of us has to find the things that we infuse into our day-to-day lives that allows us a moment of just taking a step back and not thinking about the business 24/7, so that you can have a little bit of time to yourself. And those things are different for everybody. So sometimes it's an exercise class, sometimes it's cooking, sometimes it's, so Jeff and I do really weird stuff. We do, most people would think it's weird. I think it's normal, but we love acupuncture, and we love float tanks, which is like where you go in a float tank and it's like sensory deprivation. But it's an hour where I really don't think about work. And the more that you're building and the more in your business you get, it gets harder and harder to find those things where you really don't, in the back of your mind, think, oh, wait a minute, did I respond to that email? Like, we've got this thing coming next week. Did I do this? Did I do that? Did I do that? But you have to find those things that you can do every day and stick to them and decide that you're going to take the time to do it. And if it means that you're responding to people a couple of hours later, it's okay.
The world's not going to end.
The world's not going to end.
No, it's not.
Definitely want to echo on that, especially working for an entrepreneur and you're in this startup mode. You are with them and you're following their passion. It's your passion too, and the same answering every email or thinking of the next project you really want to get started on. It's very easy, especially not having someone at home and being single. There's no excuse to go home. Yes, I can stay till 10 o'clock and work on this. No problem. I'll take on the next thing. But I think really the key is taking that time. And it's funny, we were talking about self-care day not being a thing in New York, and me being from LA, it's a thing. You have to decide to give yourself that self-care, whether it's going to the gym or getting that massage or getting that facial or rolling it up into one day. You can have a self-care day. That is absolutely key to keeping yourself balanced between work and other things that are important to you. While work is important to all of us here, we need to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. All of the above. So question for you. So what are some of your favorite apps and online programs for staying organized? As entrepreneurs, we have all these things to juggle. And I know that I always am talking to people, tell me tips, like what have you found? Let's share information. So, in being able to achieve that balance, are there any things that you could share with us?
So I think a bit mix of old school and a Google geek. I live for crossing things off my list. I have a system of ugly Post-its for monster projects I can't wait to just be done with and check off. I'll keep a Post-it onto my screen, and when I'm done, I rip it off and I post it on YouTube. But I also am very much in touch with Google Docs, spreadsheets, keeping our teams aligned on the roadmap and the calendar and the details. I think Google has done an amazing job at helping keeping us all organized, and among other tools that we use in Outlook. I don't have a specific app per se, but I think you have to just use whatever works best for you, whatever helps keep you organized in your own systems, whether it be ugly Post-its or some really fancy app. I think you have to go with it.
Yeah, I think like color coding is great, like the calendar even just on your iPhone. Like I have probably like 6 or 7 different calendars, and like one is with my manager and my publicist, and then the other one's like with my fiance. And the second, the third one's with my fiance, but it's for work, and then just me personally. And so I think when you kind of see, okay, this is green, this is just my work appearance, or this is blue, whatever it is that you want to relate to that color, I think that really helps. And then, we always have our phones on us, and so it's definitely a little bit easier. But I'm with you too, like making lists, I love doing that and physically crossing things off the list. Yes. It's not the same of like keeping your finger down on the backspace button, until like you delete it. It's like actually crossing things off the list.
Absolutely. Anyone else want to add?
Yeah. A lot of people ask me, how do I motivate myself 18 years later after I started the business? And it happens between 6 and 7 a.m. in the morning. There's an app that I am obsessed with. It's called Headspace. And I meditate every single day, and I set an intention for my day, because when I started, I was on my own. Now I have a team of 150, so I set an intention every single morning. What do I want to achieve? What is the message I want to bring to my team? And then the other thing that I do is I like to motivate myself by reading stories of other entrepreneurs, how they started, how they made it. And every morning when I'm walking to the gym, or I'm walking in general, or I'm driving, I'm on the podcast app all the time. There's a great podcast called How I Built This, and if you guys are into hearing about other people's stories, I love it, because it's all about entrepreneurs, how they started, how they grew the business, the challenges. It's How I Built This, and I am obsessed with that. And then the third thing that I do, which is a type of therapy for me, I use a lot the Notes app on my iPhone, and when I have a crazy day at work, I write down about it. I put together the list of lessons learned and how I would have dealt with this next time this happened to me. And this is actually how I wrote the book. It was a bunch of notes. I put them together. I put a storyline, and then created the book. So my form of therapy, and when I'm emotionally charged, I write about it on my notes.
I love all of that. Yeah, that's great. What about for social in particular? Like, do you keep a content calendar? Do you use specific apps to remind you when to post? Do you plan it all out? What do you use?
Yes. So I don't know. It's so funny because when I competed at the Olympics, I didn't have an Instagram, and so it's like things have changed so much, obviously, just within the last decade. But yeah, I think it goes beyond just me. I have kind of like a team of people helping me. I'm the only one that's like actually physically posting it and writing the captions, obviously, and everything. But from your photographer to obviously, if there's campaigns posts that you're doing, it's, your management team is kind of keeping track of that and when you need to deliver the content by. And then it's also really, thinking about creatively how you can create the content that is going to be different and interesting for your fans and your followers, because I think, every single person, every single influencer has a different following and a different fan base, and so it's kind of figuring out what they want to see. The Instagram stories, the polls are awesome because you can kind of ask what they want to see more of, and so that's been really helpful for me. But yeah, using a bunch of different apps, and there's the apps that you can plan out your feed and kind of see if you're one that likes to look at your feed and for it to look great, obviously you can put planned photos up and see how it looks on your feed before you post them. But yeah, definitely use a lot of different things, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I need to keep a list. What advice, I'd love to, whoever wants to chime in on this, I feel like this is a great question. What advice would you give to an entrepreneur starting a business? Like day one, raise your hand in the audience if you want to start a business, if you just started a business. I would assume most of you, if you're in this panel, right? So what advice would you give to all these people out here? Who wants to chime in?
I can take this. My top 3 pieces of advice are: focus on your goal, but always have a plan B on how to get there. Don't get disappointed if your plan A doesn't go as expected. Always have a plan B. My number 2 advice is don't be afraid to make mistakes, because the biggest rewards come with the biggest risks. And my 3rd tip, coming from the beauty industry, is always look your best. Because when you look your best, you will feel confident, you will project yourself in a better way, and you will achieve your goals.
Yeah, I think to add on to that, those are such great tips. For me, I know ever since I was a little girl, it was something that my mom taught me growing up in gymnastics, and you can really apply this to life, to business, to so many different things. But there were definitely days where I would come home from training and just tell my mom, that's it, I want to quit, I don't want to do this anymore, it's too hard. And my parents never forced or pushed me into gymnastics until I had a bad day. And so I would come home and tell my mom that I wanted to quit, and she would say, okay, that's fine, you can quit, but not today. You have to go back to the gym until you have a good day, and after a good day, you can quit. And so sometimes that was the next day, sometimes it was 2, 3, 4, 5 days later. And of course, moms know when we have a good day. So I would come home after a good day finally, and she would say, now we'll enroll you back into public school, find a different activity that you like to do. And I would just say, I don't know what you're talking about. I never said I wanted to quit. So I think the moral of that story for me, and it's really stuck with me, is that we're all going to go through hard times in our lives, our personal lives, our business lives, our social, whatever, stage you're in your life. But it's inevitable to not have a bad day, but that's why it's so important to set those goals and to kind of have those goals out in front of you. Something I loved doing was creating a vision board. So easy, and just putting your goals down, or even just writing your goals down. That way you actually see it, and it's not just in your mind. You're holding yourself accountable to that. And then on those bad days, you look back at your goals and you're like, okay, you know what? This is okay. This is just a bump in the road. It's just a bad day, but I can't be the one that's going to quit or give up after a bad day, because you're going to regret it once you kind of get over the fact that you just had a bad day.
Absolutely.
I think one of my big ones is just remember to celebrate the wins. I think it's something that as entrepreneurs we don't allow ourselves, especially in the beginning, and I think that we tend to really focus on the losses and focus on the things that we would have done differently. But the things that keep you going are the wins, and I think even, a lot of, my loved ones in my life, family members have noticed and have said this to both Amy and me is, wow, when something goes wrong, you guys really, you pick it apart, you focus on it, and you spend all this time debriefing and figuring out what went wrong. But when you have a win, it's just woo, and then you move on. And you don't, you have to really take a moment and relish it and enjoy it to remember that those wins are there, and you're going to have another win. And to get there, you do have to have the failures, and you do have to have the disappointments, and you have to learn from them, and then you're going to turn it into a success.
So one thing that I always say to a lot of people, women in business specifically, is unapologetically be proud of your wins, right? And just say it out loud. So I want to go down the panel. What's a win that you had recently that you want to share with everybody because you're really proud and excited about it? Whoever wants to chime in?
I'll talk about how I dealt with rejection when I first started, because I think that's something we all face, regardless of you're just starting out or you've been in the business for 15 years. Very early on, I really wanted to get my products into a very luxury, high-end department store, and that was always my dream. I needed to be there. And what I would do, I would send product, I would send emails, try to set up a meeting, and I would either not get a response or get a message, we don't have space for you or your products. And what I learned throughout all those years of running the business is whenever I get a no, I try to use this to motivate me and drive me to do better and work harder and turn that no into a yes. So I would say to everyone who's starting out and you be getting a few no's along the way, use this energy rather than being resentful and make yourself feel like the victim. Take that energy and drive this and make you work harder and make you persevere and get to your goals. And 8 years later, we ended up working with that store, but it took about 8 years of rejection to get there. So just persevere and use the drive to turn a no into something positive.
Yeah, for me, I actually think my, in the moment, what I thought was my biggest failure actually turned into a win. And it was when I was trying to make my second Olympic team. Going into the Olympic trials, I was the reigning Olympic all-around champion, so I was expected to be the best. I had a lot of expectations, a lot of pressure, both from myself and just kind of the world. And on my very best event, which was the uneven bars, I fell flat on my face, missed a release move, and I remember laying there on the mat literally like this, with my face down, and I like looked up and remember being just so embarrassed and mortified, and I wanted to crawl under the podium, and my dad, who was my coach, he asked if I was okay, and then he said, you don't have to finish. The dad instinct kind of came in, and he just said, I just want you to be safe. And I said, I'm fine, but I have to finish this. You always told me that no matter what I do, you always have to finish what you've started. So I chalked back up my grips. I had 30 seconds to get back on the bar, and I finished that routine. I landed on my feet, and for the very first time in my entire career, I had a standing ovation for the worst routine of my entire career. So in the moment, I remember being so confused because I was like, people shouldn't even be clapping for that. That was so bad. And looking around the arena with 20,000 people on their feet and millions watching back at home, it made me realize, because for so many years, I always thought that people were only going to love or support me if I won, if I was the best, if I won that, first place or the gold medal. And the moment that I had there, where I literally fell on my face and I had the biggest response of my entire life, made me realize that it really is truly finding something that you love to do. It's about the journey. It's about the good days, it's about the bad days, but people are still going to love and support you even if you don't win, even if you get a million no's, even if you don't get into that store right away. People are still going to love you and support you. And so it's so important to find something that you truly love to do, because that's how you're gonna get through those moments. So I think right away I thought the world was over, that I didn't make the second Olympic team, and then literally the next day, I got a call from my manager told me that NBC now wanted to bring me over to the Olympics, and so that was kind of like when one door shuts, another one opens, and so that kind of kicked off my broadcasting career. But I think we all just tend to obsess over the fact of being the best or winning or being perfect and worrying about maybe what other people think. And so that's truly what I was thinking, was all these people instead of like what I felt. And I think that moment became the defining moment in my gymnastics career, because it taught me so much more than the moment that I had when I won the gold medal. Like, winning a gold medal was incredible, but it was also kind of like, great, if you work hard, your dreams can come true. But the moments of, failure or disappointment or adversity and how you handle yourself there is, I feel like, is kind of what defines you.
That's good. That's great. Yeah. Do you want to chime in about
Absolutely.
something that you're proud of? Yeah.
We talked about celebrating every win, and not every win is a huge win. Working for an entrepreneur, I think it's really important that you surround yourself with like-minded people, because you can't do everything. You don't know everything about every area. We talked a little bit before the panel around healthcare, around starting your business. It's not necessarily everyone's background, but leaning on the experts of your team members and building the right team around you is a win that I'm proud of personally. What we have at JustFab, and it's really allowed us to do great campaigns and tell great stories that are inclusive to women all over the world. And I'd like to celebrate the wins of the team and the work you're able to produce as a result.
It's great to celebrate your own wins and also those around you that you support as well. We are going to open this up to Q&A, because I have so many more questions, but I want to open it up to the group as well. So, yeah, you want to start?
This question is specifically for you, Maria. You talked about how, as you're starting out and you're trying to get your products in stores and you were hit with no, you need to sort of turn that
That is really important. It's a very good question, what you've just asked. So when you get the first response from a store, which I did, saying, oh, we don't have space for your products right now, you need to make sure that your response, that you need to acknowledge that email and respond back is positive. And you keep it to the level that you don't send something that out of the heat of the moment that shows how upset you are. Keeping it positive, saying, thank you so much, I totally understand, the time is not right, but I would love to keep in touch and I will keep you updated on what's going on. I would probably leave it about 6 to 9 months, and then send them some more press clippings, or these are a few more stores that we were working with, and being nice without being pushy. But every rejection that you get, treat it in a positive way, and I think that has really helped me. I could have gone back and said, oh, no, you don't know what you're talking about, this is the best brand, you should have it. So you never have to show your disappointment with them. You keep it upbeat, and you just use your judgment to reach out every 6 to 9 months, but keep it calm and don't be pushy, and you'll get there.
Yes.
I have a blog, Style Delights on Twitter and Instagram. I have a twofold question for, first is how, even though it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, as a fashion blogger or a writer or an entrepreneur, fashion and style is still considered like sometimes, oh, it's just style, or it's just you write for fashion or you write for style, it's nothing that serious. And for Daniella, the second question, fourth question is that when you pitched your idea to hedge fund managers and equity firms and venture capitalists, did you find that kind of bias because the industry you were pitching for was not high tech and not like like very serious industry? And if as a blogger or as a fashion writer, we want to make it as a serious impact. How you differentiate yourself in terms of not just fashion style, but something more important than that? Thank you.
So I think that no matter whom you're speaking to, because you're right, fashion and style, it's a massive, massive industry, and I think that most folks that you would speak to, investors or not, know that. I think it's really about knowing your audience and knowing how to reach your audience, because pitching your business isn't necessarily about convincing them that you're right. Pitching your business is about allowing somebody to see something the way that you see it, and allowing them to appreciate an opportunity the way that you appreciate an opportunity. So when we were raising our first round of financing for BaubleBar, and we were reaching out to the venture capital community, we were predominantly pitching to men who, to be perfectly honest, many of whom had a very difficult time understanding what the product was, who was purchasing it, where it's purchased. And when you get a lot of these meetings, you have exactly 1 hour with the person, and you can't go over. Their schedules are extremely busy, and you have an hour to walk them through your presentation. And most presentations in the beginning, at least at your seed round or your A round, they're 15 to 20 pages. The first few pages are about the market and the opportunity, and the remaining pages are about the business that you want to build. Typically, you want to spend the first 10 minutes on opportunity and market, and then you want to spend the remaining 50 minutes on the actual business that you're building and questions they might have. And we found that the first few meetings that we had, we would spend the entire hour explaining the market and the opportunity. So we'd sit in a room, we'd start going through it, we'd be explaining things that as consumers of the product we understood to be true. They would pause, they'd at that point usually open the door, they'd call in their assistant, they'd have her sit down, we'll just call her Jane, they'd be like, Jane, is that how you shop for jewelry? Is that true? Do you do that? Do you shop like that? Is that? And we would watch them have a 45-minute conversation with this woman that they worked with in their office, asking her to validate what we had just took to be the truth. So from there, we actually pivoted how we were approaching fundraising, and what Amy and I did is after we had secured our meeting with the investor, we would send thank you packages to the administrative assistants and just say thank you much for the help getting this organized, and then our meetings totally changed. When we came in, the investor would say, thank you so much for sending that, you really made me a hero in the office. I just watched every woman in my office come running over to see what was in the box and get so excited. And they watched the consumer experience, and they watched women that they knew well have this amazing consumer experience with our product. So we got to start from a very different place. And it's easy to kind of be like, oh my God, you're never gonna get it, or you can get creative and figure out how you allow them to see what it is that you see. So I think that, folks will always understand experiences that they can see and touch and feel and experience for themselves, and numbers always speak volumes. So, as we were building the business, we had a lot of numbers that we were able to rely on to really paint a picture for investors of the business that we had built. But I think it's really just about understanding your audience and understanding how to paint that picture for them.
Hi, my name is Yulia. I have a question about not so much starting a business, but when do you know how much you want to grow your business? How do you set the goal to when you stop? Because right now I'm having some internal conflict as to how corporate I ever want to get with my business. I've kind of spent my life trying to avoid the cubicle. So yeah, how do you set your own goals as to how big you want to grow?
Ooh, it's a good question. I think it really just depends on thinking about, what's the level that you feel comfortable with. I don't know that growth necessarily always has to mean being extremely corporate. And I think that you need to think about what changes your business needs to go through to sustain that growth, and what you feel comfortable with and what you don't feel comfortable with. So, and I say this because we started this business literally from nothing, from me and Amy sitting in Amy's apartment, like packing up boxes ourselves and walking them to the post office and shipping them, to now having an office of, again, 150 people. We have our headquarters in New York. We have our pick, pack, ship facility in New Jersey, and we're sold in, over 400 stores worldwide. So now, there were certain things that we didn't want to compromise on. So we never, ever wanted the office to feel stark and corporate. Amy and I don't sit in offices. We've never sat in offices. We sit out in an open floor plan with our team. And that was important to us because we really wanted to maintain an extremely collaborative culture. We wanted to maintain a culture where if you have an idea, you can stand up or pop over to somebody's desk and we can have those types of conversations out in the open. We've been thoughtful about the design of our space so that we have spaces throughout the office that really lend themselves to group chatter and kind of group conversation, and it doesn't always have to be a scheduled meeting in a conference room. It can be just a couple of people kind of brainstorming ideas. But with growth, you do have to infuse some level of structure. So I will be honest, when we were growing, I think one of the hardest things for companies when you grow is when we were 15 people in the company and we wanted to change something, it was real easy. You stood up, you yelled it out to the room yelled back, and you were like, cool, we're gonna do that. And then you turn around one day and you're 60 people and you can't just yell at the room anymore because everyone's all over the place. And at some point we're like, we need structure. So you have to figure out what is the right level of structure so that you can maintain transparency and communication across the organization so everybody can be marching towards the same path and goals together. But I do think that there are ways to do that and still be extremely mindful of how you maintain creativity, collaboration. I will say that I'm a native Las Vegan, proudly, and Zappos lets you do office tours, and Zappos is massive. And walking through their office was an extraordinary experience for me personally. I thought it was incredible. This billion-dollar company that employs tens of thousands of people, the level of creativity and collaboration that they have maintained throughout their organization is so impressive. And they really gave a lot of thought to how you seat people, where they sit, what common shared spaces look like, what are the cool, fun, zany office traditions that we always keep and we maintain that personality and that zing and that excitement and keep people motivated and excited to come to work every day. So I think whether you're 5 people or 50,000 people, you can do it, but it's about figuring out what are those things that you don't want to compromise on and you can maintain without impeding, the ability to sort of grow and scale.
Thank you, that was really refreshing.
Such good advice. Amazing. So we are just at about time, but before we wrap, though, we have a fun announcement from Maria, who wanted to give you guys some exciting news.
First of all, thank you all for being here today. I think you're doing the right thing, all starting your own businesses or growing and following your passions. I have 50 books to give away today. Of my book, it's launching in the US this week at Barnes & Noble, How to Be an Overnight Success. I share my journey of everything that I went through to be where I am today. And I'd love you guys to read the book and get inspired and follow your dreams. So I have 50 of those. I will be going to the Rodial stand in a few minutes, so come by and say hi and get a free book.
And come say hi to everyone today. Thank you so much for coming, everyone. Thank you.